Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, we would like to presenting our group project report for Group 7, a simulation model for hospital emergency department queuing system hospital in California, United States. Here is the presentation outline. First, we will go to the introduction.
Assalamualaikum and hello, my name is Dr Arina binti Rashid. Now I'm going to present the research background of our group project. I had identified some important things that need to take in account throughout during this project. We need to know the definition and application of queuing system. A queuing system exists when services are needed by customer from any facilities, and we need to know the simple queuing system contain pattern of arrival, the method of service and discipline of queues. Looking at the emergency patient before medical treatment is made, the chances of recovery for patient may be critical, and that's we call critical times. The critical times is possible to break down into two components, entry time and response time. Entry time starts when emergency medical assistance requested until the patient arrives in the emergency room, and the response times starts when the patient arrives in the hospital until they encounters a physician who is ready to provide the specific treatment necessary. And then we also need to know the queuing simulation. A simulation can be easily modified to see how it affects the system, and we can say that the simulation can provide the output result which cannot be obtained via analytical model. And then we need also to know that the real system should contain three entities like queues, server and routes, and these three entities have interaction as a function of time. And then lastly, we need to know that simulation may be discrete or continuous time, or discrete or continuous state. Before proceeding to further study, I had identified a problems that was faced in hospital. There have been problems in terms of overflow of patient and a limited number of doctors to serve the patient, and also over doctor recruitment also result in high cost to pay for their treatment or service. And then that's why the hospital administrator need to produce the model predictive control that will predict the number of queues of patients so that they can reduce the burden on service provision. The objective of the study is to observe the waiting time for each patient to be treated in the treatment room, D0, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5 and the others. And the second objective is to apply waiting line model in the emergency department to measure the average waiting time for each patient. And the third objective is to optimize the management so that the management can reduce and can apply the simulation technique to minimize the waiting time. And then the assumption of the study is if there are equivalent patients, the basis of first come first serve will be used. And the second assumption of this study is head of line is the patient who has the higher priority number in the queues, because head of line blocking occurs whenever traffic waiting to be transmitted. The third assumption of this study is queuing system is non-preemptive, means no doctor will turn to another patient without stabilizing the condition of the patient with whom he or she is currently dealing.
Now, I will explain on the company background and the general model conceptualization. Our project is based on the California Emergency Healthcare System. It is said that they have encountered some serious issues on the accommodation for uncountable number of patients per year. They have a total of 364 emergency departments which served over 9.7 million of patients in the year 2000. The hospitals also provide 24 hours ambulance services all over the country. However, over the years, their healthcare also faced some financial crises due to the economic growth all around the world. Thus, the healthcare system decided they should build a system which is effective in both organization and financial wise. Activity Cycle Diagram (ACD) is a network model of the logical and temporal relationships among the activities. An ACD is used in the activity scanning of simulation execution in order to be able to form a better and efficient queuing structure. ACD is used to describe objects of entities of a particular system consisting of queues and activities. A queue is said to be passive state whereby the entity waits before involving in the next activity. ACD consists of life cycle for every entity and their activities and attributes involved. Hence, we will look into a healthcare system ACD. Now we are looking at the list of entities involved in our system. The entities involved are patients, registration and triage, treatment room, D0 to D5, X-ray rooms, and pharmacy. Figure 2.1 shows the life cycle of registration and triage rooms. Patients arrive will be given the service when the register counter is idle, otherwise they will have to queue for their turn. Figure 2.2 shows the life cycles of other entities involved, which is pretty much similar to the concept before. Figure 2.3 shows the life cycle of a patient, which I will further explain in the activity cycle diagram. So based on our ACD, a patient arrives and waits for their turn at the register and are sent to triage for screening. Then the patient will have to wait before they are sent to one of the treatment rooms depending on their appointment and treatment. Once they have undergone their treatment, they will be directed to either hospital admission or allowed to leave depending on the severity of their case. Lastly, patients who are directed to the pharmacy to get medicine will also queue for their turn before they leave.
Hello, my name is Siti Amnah binti Muhammad Talib. Now I will be presenting the data collection. The data that we consider for our project is the number of patients arrived at the emergency department in the year 2012. This data we get is from 1st January 2012 until 3rd January 2012. The duration count for each day is on 24 hours and the time interval for 30 minutes. The total number of data that is needed to be analyzed after cleaning is 144. Since this data is separated according to the day, the analysis will be carried out day by day. The histogram shows the data number of patients arrived from day 1 to day 3. For the data analysis, EasyFix software will be used to analyze our probability data and selecting the best fitting distribution. The goodness of fit test provide helpful guidance for evaluating the suitable of a potential input model. There are three methods of goodness of fit test, which is Smirnov test, Anderson-Darling test, and chi-square test. For the null hypothesis, is the data follows specific distribution. For the alternative hypothesis, the data does not follow specific distribution. For all three tests here, the null hypothesis is rejected when the p-value is smaller than alpha. This is the result from EasyFit software. It shows that the ranking of distribution based on KS test. First ranking on KS test is gamma 3-parameter distribution, but this distribution does not exist in Simul8 software. Hence, we need to choose the nearest high rank with the distribution exists in Simul8. From here, we can get the nearest distribution is 12, which is log normal distribution. Hence, log normal distribution will be chosen as the distribution for this arrival time. This one is the result for KS test, AD test, and CS test. whether we need to reject the hash null or not. From the hypothesis here, there will be not sufficient evidence to reject hash null at alpha level 0.01 to 0.02 for all three tests, while the null hypothesis for AD test and CS test are not rejected at alpha 0.05. Next, for parameter estimation, this is the distribution list for all entities. The same procedure is then applied to the distribution for D0, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, and the others. This table shows the input parameters that are estimated by using EasyFit software. The result will be used in simulation later.
Next, we move to chapter 4, which is model translation. The model is translated from ACD in the previous section into the Simul8 software. Although the ACD shows that there are cues such as wait for registration, wait for treatment room, wait for admission, wait for results, and wait to leave, but some cues are not to be considered in this case. However, the queue before registration is not to be diminished, as it may cause a loss in patients. The treatment rooms are not to be combined as replicates because each of them has different doctors measuring in different rounds. Thus, the treatment speeds are expected to be different and distributed differently. All parameters are set according to the previous section. This is the Simul8 result of the simulation for 1 week. It shows that the system is rather efficient with 4,384 out of 4,613 patients completed the whole process. The results shows that 25% of patients completed the whole process with admission into hospital. %6% of X-ray is carried out and the patients are instructed to go back. While 25% of patients got their medicine through pharmacy in 1 hour. Now we move to verification and validation process. The technique used in verification is simplified model. By comparing to the conceptual model, it can be seen that some steps are not necessary in this case. In real system, there is no need for a queue between registration and triage. Thus, these steps are combined. By referring to the real system, when a counter is too crowded, then an extra person will be added to assist in the counter, creating a temporary counter. For the validation of model, the customers can be split into two, which are patient and hospital emergency department. From the model shown, we successfully captured the model correctly using the data provided. This created model is simple and easily understandable to the policymakers as it follows the correct emergency room structure and its patient flow by referring most of the emergency departments in hospitals in California. The system works by following the assumptions in Chapter 1 and the properties and settings stated in the previous section.
Hello, I'm Yokling. So I'm going to present about Chapter 5 scenarios, where we have 3 scenarios. We'll be comparing and see its efficiency compared to the original model. So we are going to proceed with the original model first, where we see from the first representation of Simul8, we can see first from here, it has actually we look at the red bar there, we can deduce that it actually has 36 people queuing and it is the latest number and the maximum number And from here we can deduce that the patient actually accumulated, and also the registration counter cannot actually cope with the number of patient arrival. So the easiest method we're going to use is that we're going to introduce a new counter in registration and triage. So the counter will be exactly same as the previous counter. So after we introduce that, we can see from here the number actually greatly reduced from like 36. It actually reduced to maximum of 5 patients, and the average is only 0.09, and it is a very low number. And we can deduce from here saying that most patients who arrive in the hospital actually get service at registration and triage. This also introduces us into the next scenario, which is when we look at here, it has 190 people queuing at D0 treatment room. We actually do not shift the queue to another. For example, we do not shift it to D1, D2, D3 or other counters. This is because every treatment room actually represent different types of wounds and different types of things they're going to treat. So from here we can see that D0 is commonly known as general treatment, but it is not even logic to have like 190 people queuing at a treatment room. So we're going to just use the previous method, which is to introduce a new doctor there, since we cannot move it to other queue. And we can see from here there's a D other counter here. The other is actually pharmacy. Although we look at here, it is actually a quite efficient one. But when we look at the Simul8 and we put into the consideration that the counter is pharmacy, we actually can say that we can see from here properties result. It for the time limit of 60 minutes, it's only 37% of people. That means more than 50% of them are going to like wait for more than 1 hour just to get a medicine. It is not so logic as well. So we are going to introduce a new counter as well. From here, we are going to introduce a replicate of D0 and a replicate of pharmacy. So we can see from scenario 2 here, the number is actually greatly reduced. For D0, the queue is just 0, and it's not like 190 people queuing anymore. And for this one, right, this is the end result for pharmacy, and we can see from here 80% of them are going to get treated, are going to get their medicine in 1 hour, and it is very efficient. Like 4 out of 5 people are going to get their medicine in 1 hour. It is very, very quick actually. So, and the third one is that we have to consider is that the data we obtain is from Hospital of California, and it is a state hospital in United States. And we can put in a consideration is that we are concerned about COVID-19 pandemic. What happens, and what we do is that for example, at a specific time we have 3 patients arrive, we just double it from the raw data we have. We just double it from 3 to 6, and we use the new double data, we put it into EasyFit, and then we try to retrieve a new parameter, and the parameter will be inserted here in order to get the new arrival of patient. So from this new distribution, we are going to run it, and from here we can see that it is actually a very efficient model. From here we can see that there's no queue here, so the queue is actually quite less. There's no accumulated queue. So we are going to see in general what will happen if we use different model. So this is the result and discussion for the average time of completion of 4 different models. We can see that there is a model for original, scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. We can see from here why is that the red line is way below the blue line by around 50 minutes. This is because we add in a new registration counter. Actually reduce the whole time. Like before this, they need to queue like for a very long time at registration. Now they don't need anymore, so that it's speed up by like around 50 minutes for all admitted, wait for result and go back, because we have 3 exits. So the exits are admitted, wait for result and go back. All these are at the exits, so we're going to test only on the exits. After that, when we add in a treatment, D0 treatment room and a pharmacy, actually going to reduce all the time, like a very great number. Although it has no effect on wait for result because we didn't change anything that can affect wait for result, but you can see that for admitted it actually reduced a lot, because before this we have like 190 people queuing. Now we don't have it anymore because we have another room that can like treat the patient quickly. And for the scenario 3, we can see that although the number doubles, as long as our system can sustain, it doesn't really mean that the waiting time will like increase a lot.
That's all. Thank you for listening.